What's up, space enthusiasts? Today we're diving into something absolutely incredible that SpaceX is working on. Picture this. You're on a 6-month journey to Mars, but instead of floating around like a helpless balloon, you're walking around normally, just like you do on Earth. Sounds like science fiction. Right. Well, Elon Musk and SpaceX are dead serious about making artificial gravity a reality. But here's the crazy part. This isn't just some cool concept they're throwing around. This is actually a matter of life and death for future space travelers. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why artificial gravity might be the most important breakthrough in space travel since the rocket itself. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The International Space Station, our crown jewel of space technology, is running on computers that are older than most of you watching this video. And even with all our advances, we can only keep humans alive up there for limited periods before space literally starts destroying their bodies. Now imagine this SpaceX wants to send not just a few highly trained astronauts, but hundreds of starships carrying thousands of regular people across our solar system. We're talking about your mom, your neighbor, people who've never even been on a roller coaster, let alone trained for space travel. Here's where it gets scary. A one-way trip to Mars takes about 6 months with current rocket technology. That's half a year of floating around in zero gravity. And trust me, what looks fun in the movies is actually a nightmare for your body. Thanks to decades of research on the ISS, we now know exactly how brutal microgravity is on human bodies. We're talking about muscle wasting so severe that astronauts lose up to 20% of their muscle mass in just 5 to 11 days. Your bones literally start dissolving. Astronauts lose bone density at rates 10 times faster than elderly people with osteoporosis. But it gets worse. Your immune system basically shuts down, making you vulnerable to infections. Your vision gets messed up. Some astronauts come back needing glasses for the first time in their lives. And here's the really scary part. Your brain actually changes shape because fluids shift around without gravity. Coming back to Earth after long periods in space. Imagine having the worst hangover of your life, but it's your entire body, and it lasts for months. Some of this damage is actually permanent. Current astronauts need to exercise 4 hours every single day just to slow down this deterioration. Now picture a starship full of regular people dealing with this. We'd need massive gym facilities running 24/7, and even then, we're looking at potential medical emergencies in space. Blood clots, heart problems, bone fractures, all caused by weightlessness. This is where Elon Musk's genius comes in. In 2024, he tweeted something that caught everyone's attention. Starship will have a small spin on the way to Mars. Even a tiny gravity vector is better than none. This isn't just wishful thinking. Musk is talking about artificial gravity through rotation, a concept that's been around since 1903, but has never been implemented on this scale. Here's how it works. And it's actually pretty simple physics. Remember those spinning rides at amusement parks where you get pressed against the wall and the floor drops away? That's artificial gravity in action. When you spin something around a central point, it experiences what we call centrifugal force. Technically, it's not a real force. It's actually your body's inertia resisting the change in direction. But from your perspective inside the spinning structure, it feels exactly like gravity pulling you outward. Think of swinging a bucket of water in a vertical circle. The water doesn't fall out because the centrifugal force keeps it pressed against the bottom of the bucket. Same principle applies to creating artificial gravity in spacecraft. So how exactly would Starship create artificial gravity? The proposed design is absolutely brilliant. Picture this. 2 passenger starships connected by a large truss structure that deploys from the payload bay. This truss acts like the hub of a giant wheel in space, once connected. Both starships fire their thrusters to start the entire structure spinning. As the rotation speed increases, passengers inside the starship start feeling a pull toward the outer walls. At the right rotational speed, about 2.8 rotations per minute, you get Earth-like gravity of 9.8 meters per second squared. For the entire 6-month journey to Mars, passengers would walk around normally, sleep in actual beds instead of floating sleeping bags, and eat meals at tables instead of chasing floating food around the cabin. But here's where it gets complicated. Creating artificial gravity through rotation comes with some serious engineering challenges. First, there's the size problem. To spin slowly enough for human comfort while generating enough force to feel like Earth gravity, you need a really big structure. The smaller the radius, the faster you have to spin. And faster spin rates make people sick. Most humans can only handle about 1 revolution per minute before getting nauseous. Some studies suggest up to 4 RPM might be tolerable, but in practical terms, slower is always better for passenger comfort. Then there's something called the Coriolis effect, and this is where things get really weird in a rotating environment. Moving objects don't travel in straight lines. They curve. Imagine you're sitting in a chair on our spinning starship. If you just sit still, everything feels normal. But the moment you stand up, you're introducing motion in the rotating frame. As you rise, your center of mass moves toward the axis of rotation, and suddenly you feel a sideways push. Every simple action becomes strange. Reaching for a glass of water pushes your hand sideways. Pouring a drink makes the liquid curve. Walking feels like you're constantly being nudged to one side. The direction of this force depends on which way you're facing relative to the rotation. Face forward, get pushed that way. Face backward, get pushed the other way. It's like living in a fun house where the rules of physics are slightly off. The solution is to reduce the rotation rate, but that means less artificial gravity unless you make the structure bigger. It's a constant trade-off between size, complexity, and passenger comfort. Fortunately, Starship is already pretty large, about 50 meters tall and 9 meters wide. When you connect 2 of them with a truss structure, you get a rotating system with enough radius to create comfortable artificial gravity. But Mars missions aren't the only application SpaceX is considering. They've also proposed using starships to build massive rotating space stations in Earth orbit. Imagine dozens of starships connected in a giant wheel configuration. A Von Braun wheel station that could house thousands of people permanently in space. With Starship's relatively low launch costs, such a massive station could actually be more affordable than the International Space Station. Each Starship becomes a module in the wheel, providing living space, laboratories, manufacturing facilities, or recreational areas. The entire structure would be supported by SpaceX's ecosystem. Super Heavy for heavy lifting, Dragon for crew transport, Starlink for communications. Now let's be realistic here. Repurposing an interplanetary transport vehicle into a permanent space habitat is no small task. Starship wasn't originally designed to be a space station. Much of its internal volume is taken up by engines, fuel tanks, and transportation infrastructure. Converting these areas into livable spaces would require major modifications. You'd need to add solar panels, docking ports, life support systems, and all the infrastructure that makes long-term space habitation possible. Traditional space stations like the ISS are purpose-built for their mission. Starship's sleek design would need extensive changes that could potentially compromise its performance as a rocket. As of now, SpaceX still has a long way to go. Many challenges remain unsolved, and numerous technical hurdles must be overcome before this vision becomes reality. The company is still working on perfecting basic Starship operations, orbital refueling, heat shield reliability, engine performance, and landing systems. Adding artificial gravity systems is another layer of complexity on top of an already ambitious project. But here's why this is so important. If humanity really wants to become a spacefaring civilization, whether we're colonizing Mars, exploring the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, or building permanent settlements in space, we have a clear choice. Either we accept the devastating physical toll that microgravity takes on human bodies, limiting our presence in space to short missions with highly trained astronauts, or we develop artificial gravity systems that allow normal people to live and work in space indefinitely. Think about it this way. In the early days of ocean exploration, disease killed more sailors than shipwrecks. Scurvy, caused by vitamin C deficiency, decimated crews on long voyages until we figured out the solution. Space travel today faces a similar challenge. The health risks of microgravity could be more dangerous than actual technical failures. At the scale SpaceX is planning, thousands of passengers per mission, space-related health issues could affect huge portions of travelers. Even experienced astronauts have needed emergency treatment for blood clots caused by weightlessness. Otherwise, healthy people might develop serious conditions just from the shock of being weightless for months. Musk's artificial gravity concept draws heavy inspiration from science fiction, and there's nothing wrong with that. Science fiction has always been a driver of real scientific progress. The ideas we see in movies today often become the technologies of tomorrow. Rotating spacecraft have appeared in countless films and novels, from 2001: A Space Odyssey to Interstellar. These stories didn't just entertain us, they planted the seeds for real engineering solutions. The concept isn't new. Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, one of the founding fathers of rocketry, proposed using rotational force to create artificial gravity way back in 1903. Since then, engineers have developed countless variations: the von Braun wheel, O'Neill cylinders, Stanford torus designs. NASA has seriously considered their Nautilus X station concept, which would use a rotating torus for artificial gravity. The Gateway Foundation has plans for commercial space stations based on similar principles. What's different about SpaceX's approach is the scale and practicality. Instead of building specialized structures from scratch, they're adapting existing Starship technology to create artificial gravity systems. When you really think about it, the engineering is mind-blowing. You're taking two spacecraft, each weighing hundreds of tons when fully loaded, connecting them with a truss structure, and spinning the entire assembly in the vacuum of space. The precision required is incredible. The rotation has to be perfectly balanced. The connection points must handle enormous stresses, and the entire system needs to remain stable for months while traveling millions of miles through space. Any failure in the rotation system could be catastrophic. If the connection breaks, both spacecraft go spinning off in different directions. If the rotation becomes unstable, passengers could experience dangerous G-forces. If SpaceX pulls this off, it changes everything about human space travel. Suddenly, space isn't just for elite astronauts. It becomes accessible to ordinary people. Long-duration missions become possible without devastating health consequences. We could see permanent research stations on Mars with rotating sections for crew health. Mining operations in the asteroid belt could house workers in artificial gravity facilities. Tourist destinations in space could offer Earth-like comfort while providing incredible views. When might we see this technology in action? That's the million-dollar question. SpaceX has a history of ambitious timelines that stretch longer than initially planned, but they also have a track record of eventually delivering revolutionary technology. Musk mentioned artificial gravity for Mars missions, which are currently planned for the late 2026 or 2030s. Given the complexity of the systems involved, we're probably looking at the 2030s at the earliest for full implementation. Here's the bottom line. Spinning Starship to create artificial gravity might seem like science fiction, but it's actually practical engineering. The physics works, the technology is achievable, and the health benefits are undeniable. Sure, there are challenges, the Coriolis effect, engineering complexity, size requirements, and safety concerns. But when you consider the alternative, watching passengers suffer devastating health effects during 6-month journeys to Mars, artificial gravity isn't just a nice-to-have feature, it's absolutely essential. SpaceX isn't just trying to get humans to Mars, they're trying to get us there healthy, functional, and ready to build a new civilization. Artificial gravity might just be the key that makes that possible. The future of space travel isn't just about getting there, it's about arriving ready to explore, to work, to live. And if SpaceX succeeds in making artificial gravity a reality, they won't just be changing space travel. They'll be opening up the entire solar system for human exploration and settlement. What do you think? Are you excited about the possibility of artificial gravity in space? Would you be willing to take a 6-month journey to Mars if you could walk around normally the entire time? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible space technology content. Until next time, keep looking up